illness, and that was the cause of it. If so, it was a very strange malady, for it only attacked him by night and drove him from his bed to walk and walk, as if he would wear out a grave in the floorboards with his feet. That he was as ill as that, to bring graves to mind, I mean, I first learned from Mrs. Alice one Saturday afternoon in September when the rain had kept me in. Mrs. Alice was our cook and housekeeper, rolled tightly into one, and secured by an enormous white apron and a crusty white cap, so that she looked like a wrinkled old baby who had been left waiting at the font. I was in the scullery, helping myself to raisin wine, which was kept in a stone jug covered with a bit of beaded muslin to prevent the flies. She came in so suddenly that I had no chance to escape, and could only stand with the jug up to my face and the muslin veil on my head, waiting for her to shout loud enough for my father to hear. Instead, she gazed at me mournfully and said it was high time I stopped thinking only about myself and began to think of being a support to my mother and sisters, as my father could not live forever. Much relieved that she hadn't lost her temper, I put down the jug and attempted to depart. She stood in my way and said, even more mournfully, that she hoped I prayed for my father every night, as I'd never forgive myself if I was to wake up one morning and find that it was too late. Too late for what, Mrs. Alice? "Never you mind," she said. "It's not my place to tell you, but soon enough you'll have to know." As she said this, she looked up at the scullery ceiling very meaningfully, as if we had angels in the house, like bailiffs, and she didn't want them to hear. She wouldn't say any more, and, in response to my plaguing her, only shook her head and repeated, "Never you mind." But I did mind. In fact, I was deeply frightened, and somehow got the idea that I was to blame, and that my father was dying of a worthless son, and sooner or later it would be diagnosed as such by Dr. Fisher. I lay awake at night, listening to the footsteps below in utter terror, and wondering what I would do if they were to stop suddenly, and that I alone in all the house would know that my father was dead, and that I had done it. In a perfect agony of remorse, I prayed for him and did everything I could, in the way of cleanliness and behaviour, to improve myself and undo the harm that, apparently, I had done. But the walking went on, and worse than ever, began to be accompanied by deep, unearthly sighs. I said nothing about it to anyone, partly because I thought I might have been to blame, and partly because it was something between him and me, a secret that we shared. Sometime in November, my father took a turn for the worse. He began to go downhill so rapidly that it was as if he himself had been taken by surprise and had slipped and left a good part of his substance behind. Overnight, it seemed, he became horribly thin and bloodless, so that even his fingernails were as white as paper. He didn't go outside any more, chiefly, I think, because his clothes looked so ill upon him, and he was ashamed to be a scarecrow. Dr. Fisher came to see him almost every day, and there sprang up on the table by his bed a whole forest of green glass medicine bottles that jingled when you went in, like tiny frantic bells. Once Dr. Fisher brought a nurse with him, a Mrs. Small. She was a gaunt-looking widow from Hertford, who had buried 3 husbands, her own, I think, on account of the aggravation of leaves. I'm sure she said leaves, but I never discovered how it had come about, whether by the leaves dropping into their beer and poisoning it, or by straight suffocation, as Mrs. Alice looked up and, seeing me agog at the kitchen door, said, "Shh, Mrs. Small."